So given the state of the Apple Vision Pro, probably aren't a lot of people who are going to have this issue, but how do you gift someone something that has to fit on their face?
Oh, darling, can't you hear me calling? Calling to you soft and low.
Dual knit band, correct?
That's right, yeah.
All right. This has been a hot commodity.
Really?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people coming to get them.
That kind of makes sense, you know?
Yeah. Heard it's a lot more comfortable than the other.
Yeah, that's what I've also heard.
Yeah, on its way out. Should be like a minute or two, okay?
Great, thank you.
Light a gleaming I see.
And yeah, should be all set to go.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
To cuddle and fold near to me.
So, to finish that thought, I got this thing because I put it on my birthday list. The reason I did that is because it's one of the things that I would not necessarily buy myself, but if someone else bought it for me, I would happily accept it, right? Part of the reason for that is because I have not really had a problem with the Apple Vision Pro, and I think they call it the Solo Knit Band. Since day one, I found it remarkably comfortable. Now, don't get me wrong, it does get heavy on my face over a long period of time. Watching a movie, sometimes I'll have to take a break, but most of the time I'm relatively okay with it. I think I can attribute a lot of that to my having played hockey through most of my childhood, because you have to wear something on your head at all times when you do that. And so I put it on my list thinking, hey, I'm not willing to invest in this, but if someone else is willing to get it for me, then that's awesome. Like, that would be the ideal scenario. Wasn't expecting that anybody would get it for me, but eventually my dad told me that he did. He got it for my birthday. And he gave it to me not as a gift in terms of like a wrapped present, but in terms of a sort of IOU, so to speak. He sort of said, hey, listen, I tried to order this thing and it didn't work. I tried to order it on mine. I scanned my face. I had to do all of that. And I got through, and I was concerned that it wasn't going to fit you because, of course, they have different sizes. They have a small, medium, and large, at least as far as I know. And so he contacted Apple support to see if there was a way to, obscure his purchase for me or to purchase it, but match it to my size. And there was really no blessed pathway for him to purchase it for me as a gift. So he basically said, listen, I can't get it for you because they need to measure your head. I wasn't going to measure your head because I was trying to give this to you as a surprise. And support wasn't able to help him. And so he said, we're just going to buy it for you. You'll scan your head now and you'll go in. So that's what happened. He sat down with me. We scanned my face. It gave me a medium size, which I'll have to go back and check to see if that matches the old size of the Solo Knit loop that I have. And we're gonna give it a shot here. So my first impression with this thing is that it is heavy. The back of it is very kind of shockingly heavy, actually. You can kind of see how it falls with more momentum than this top strap, which falls a little bit more loosely, a little more lightly, which reminds me a little bit of the original. If you take a look at the Solo Knit Band, it is very supple. It can flex very easily, and if I pop it off, which, by the way, I can do in here by just pulling, taking this orange tab and pulling, you can see how it is more similar in terms of suppleness to this one right there. Now, in comparison with this, see how the difference in weight makes it fall very differently? Should give you a sense of the weight of this thing overall. And I will say that there's a couple of other differences as well. This one has a much narrower back. I'm not sure if that's because this is the medium band. I believe that if you look in the inside of this one very subtly, this is also the medium as well. So there's consistency across the measurements here. But it looks nice. It reminds me of what this looked like when it was brand new and fresh. And we're gonna just go ahead and attach it and see how it feels. So just like we detached the other one, go ahead and clean off the attachment point here. And snap it in, just like that. And on the inside, there you go. And you can tell that it feels much heavier. Now, if you haven't seen the other videos about this thing yet, the reason for that is that before, the Apple Vision Pro was very nose heavy. It would tilt down and kind of draw itself down on the front of your face while the back of the strap trying to hold it in place with if you were using this solo knit. This adds a counterweight in the back. It's also tilted down slightly. You can see in the way that it's connected. It's not, it doesn't point straight out. It points kind of slightly downward. And if you feel it, you can just sense that it is a slightly more balanced product overall. Now, you know, I'm not holding it exactly, but if I was holding it like this with this strap, it would be tilting forward. So you'll just have to take my word for that. Other things I noticed that this is immediately already quite tight. So I have, maybe it has some stretch to it, but I predict I might loosen this a little bit. And then we'll see how it feels on the back. But let's go ahead and plug it in and see what this looks like. All right, so I've got this thing booting up and it is basically ready to go. Obviously, it's not going to change how it boots up at all. Just start it up. I'm going to take off my glasses, put this thing on. The knob is pressed in, so that means it's going to adjust this back strap at first. If you pull it out, which you can see here slightly, that's out, that's in. Once you pull it out, it's adjusting this top strap. But I'm going to just put it on as is at the beginning. And, oh, it already feels quite nice, honestly. I'm going to tighten the back strap a little bit more. And I'm going to pull it out and actually tighten up the top strap, which I think is what I was saying. I was predicting. So you can see I pulled this out on the side to adjust that top. I'm going to kind of readjust the bottom as well. Oh, that feels quite good, actually. So I'm going to go and log in. And we're going to use this thing for a hot second just to see what the kind of weight of it feels like. I can feel like it's going to take a little bit of getting used to in terms of getting this adjusted overall, but I'm already really happy with the way that it feels. It is much, and when I say it, I mean it, it is much lighter on the front of my face, especially on my cheekbones right here and here, which with the Solo Knit Band feels, it's almost depressive in the way that it feels connected to the front of my face. This feels much lighter, and the balance goes a long way to making it already feel like the weight trade-off by adding it in this back strap here is worth it. Now, I can already tell it's messing up my hair quite a bit on the front, which maybe is a user error, but I think it will become a problem for me over time. But let me go ahead and use it, and I'll kind of walk you through my thoughts. Okay, so I just got this thing slightly adjusted more, and what I realized is that getting that top strap a little more taut, getting it tight across the top of my head, so that way it's actually acting as a fulcrum between the front and the back, is a really important piece of the puzzle there. And then the second thing is that getting this back-weighted strap down a little bit on the kind of base of my head allows it to kind of grip it across the bottom the top and then kind of the top front of my face. And so it kind of gives a more, it's almost like it's like a helmet to some degree, feeling that I'm getting using this thing. Now, I will say it doesn't feel as well aligned on my eyes, and part of that is just because I haven't quite used it yet. But it's weird that something that's heavier, I actually can feel slightly lighter in this scenario. So it's already feeling pretty good. I'm gonna actually put this solo strap back on, just to kind of do a quick comparison of the two. All right, so first impression, switching it back, very easy to switch between bands. I mean, this quick release system is awesome. I really never had a use to change between this solo knit, and I forget what they call it, like the dual loop, I think is what they call it, that came with the device. But I can foresee myself switching between these two bands more often because this one has, like I said, it's a little more supple. It's probably easier to lay on if you're gonna like kind of lounge back down on the couch or something while using this device, rather than having this kind of thicker, heavier back piece of the strap, so to speak. So I can imagine switching back and forth depending on the scenario, which makes it very nice that they have a secure but easy connection point here, which, you know, pretty common for, I think, Apple wearable devices. I will say, immediately putting this on, I am instantly comfortable adjusting it because I've been doing it for a couple of years now. It feels like I know how to get it directly centered in my visions. That way my pupils are lined up with the displays very well. It feels like it's secure in my head and that it is sort of like what I'm used to. And I'll also point out that, like I talked about last time, this is a little different because these straps do come out straight back out of the device. And actually, I tend to hold the front of the device and adjust upward to kind of keep it, I don't even know how you would call it, like leveraged up, going up, almost at a slant, from my eyeballs almost up to the top crown of the back of my head there. So it feels comfortable. I'm used to it. I like that it's slightly wider on the back of my head in the sense that it's distributing the pressure on the back of my head more than this thinner one is to some degree. It could also be because of the weight, honestly. But I can already feel the fatigue on the front of my face, especially, like I said, in my cheekbones. And I've been using it for however long this clip is, you know, the last minute and a half, basically. So I'm going to say that this so far, based off of my initial impressions, unequivocal win. And we're going to try it for an extended period here. Maybe watch a movie or something like that to see whether that still holds up.
It's early in the morning, about 2:45. I'm sitting here talking with my baby.
So last night I reorganized the space, and one thing you'll notice is that I did not wear this thing while I was doing that, because this is one takeaway with the Apple Vision Pro. The ability to walk around with the thing is hindered by the way that the cameras portray the outside world. There's very low latency, but it's relatively low resolution and especially very low field of view. And so while I would love to wear this thing and kind of move things like this bookshelf around, it kind of becomes cumbersome, even with something that feels better balanced, which of course gets us to the head strap itself. The head strap felt good. After the fact, I watched a hockey game I had recorded and the rest of a hockey game that was going on, and I was able to move around flexibly. You saw me move around between multiple chairs and the ground and the bed. I kind of leaned back and laid down. I will say, I do think that it felt slightly less fatiguing to wear on my cheekbones, but I still did get that feeling. Because when I put this thing on, as you can see right here, I'll put it down like this. Even with this acting as a fulcrum between the front and the back, right? You can see that it's still very heavily front weighted overall, right? And with this down low on the back side of my head, I still want to keep the, I don't know what you would call this, sort of the main loop relatively tight, right? Because I want it snug on the front of my eyes. one thing to think about with this is that with the Apple Vision Pro and with any kind of headset, you need very kind of strict alignment between the eyepiece and the actual way that your eyes are on your body. And so if it's not, it would be much more comfortable, let me put it this way, it would be much more comfortable to just let it sit and kind of balance and have it loosely aligned, but it feels less secure and it's less enjoyable to use because you aren't as immersed inside the actual content. Things will shift, become more blurry, get chromatic aberration, and all of the kind of issues that you have with the state of the technology. Again, I'm gonna make some coffee. I'm gonna wear this again and maybe use it for a bit of a work session on my computer. And that will be the second half of kind of my set of tests. And then I have some bigger thoughts too about what this head strap means for Apple, because I think that it's kind of a concession that they have made with the current design in a product that is already filled with all sorts of concessions. All right, I've worked for an hour. My hair is thoroughly messed up by the headband, but I kept a log here of every 10-minute increment or so while I was working. I kind of worked across several different things where I would position windows slightly differently for each of them, starting with, I guess it would have been the kind of takeaways for this video, and then some budgeting, and then a little bit of work where I was reviewing a podcast I had recorded. So it kind of gave me a range of angles that I tend to work at for each of these. I said that after 10 minutes, it felt pretty well balanced after I made some adjustments. You can see those early on in the video. 20 minutes in, I started to feel a bit of pressure on the cheekbone areas that are kind of classically the area where it gets most fatigued when I wear the Apple Vision Pro. And so again, I adjusted it a little bit. 35 minutes in, I still felt pressure on the cheekbones, but it was relieved a little bit by that adjustment that I had made. And crucially, it had not gotten worse from the 20-minute mark. So I had 35 minutes in, it was kind of stabilizing at a particular level. At 40 minutes, I did adjust it one more time. I noticed over time that because the back of this strap is angled down and the top kind of goes forward at an angle, that it kind of acts as an anchor on the lower back of your neck and kind of near the crown of your head. And so you can have it so that a lot of the pressure actually gets put on kind of near either the back strap or the top strap, and you're trying to get that balance. One of the things that you can see if you go to some of their support videos that they say you're looking for an even pressure between the top on your forehead and the cheekbone area as well. And so that kind of continual adjustment over the course of an hour got me closer and closer to that. And so at 40 minutes, I got to a level which I think I probably could have continued working with for at least another hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. We'll do more strenuous tests later. But to round out the hour at 50 minutes, I said that it felt very good at this point. I think that I noted that, and we'll test this out in a second as well, that if we had used the Solo Knit band, that I would have felt the pressure quite a bit on my cheekbones and been pretty fatigued if I had just been using the regular band. And by 60 minutes, I had actually noted that it was feeling great at that point. I think with all the adjustments and kind of letting everything settle in, it was a pretty successful hour of work with the dual knit. So the last test that we should probably run is a similar 1 hour session, but with the Solo Knit. And I will document it in a similar way, and we can kind of cross compare at the very end of the video. All right, so it's the end of the day. I'm gonna do my second work session. It's gonna be a little different than the last one, so it's not gonna be a perfect comparison, but I'm installing the Solo Knit, replacing the dual knit, and we're gonna, kind of like last night, watch a hockey game for the remainder. I've got about half of it left, which will be probably about an hour to an hour and a half, which will give us a good comparison. And I'm gonna continue documenting what it feels like. I'll do the same as I did last time. I'm gonna adjust this slowly over the period to make it comfortable. I'm going to work in 10-minute increments, and then at the end, we'll report back. All right, an hour down in this thing. I'm gonna read you my notes eventually, but I'm actually in the middle of the third period, and I'm telling you, after an hour, it has fatigued around the entire light seal, around the entire area around my eyes. So from my forehead down to my cheekbones, and I'm literally gonna switch over, partially so I can get the quick comparison, but also because I do think it is doing a better job distributing the weight. So I'm gonna do that. Second win. Dual knit also wins, I have to say. I think tomorrow morning I will give you the final impressions and the comparison of the solo knit hour there, but I can tell you right away that the dual knit is the winner, and I will be using it, I'm gonna say 99% of the time going forward. It distributes the weight much better. It is much more comfortable for longer periods of time. It is harder to adjust, which I think is the big trade-off that you make with it, which makes sense because it's got more, sort of degrees of freedom of control. You have to control the top and the bottom. Both can move front and back, but the amount of time that you spend adjusting it is 100% worth it. You can get a decent fit right away, and you can kind of just adjust it over time to make it feel comfortable. And I have not pushed it past its limit, but even using it right there after the hour with the solo knit, where my eyes were already kind of feeling the pressure around the entire light seal, it alleviated the pressure. It felt a little uncomfortable at the beginning just because it was working from behind basically. But 10, 15 minutes in, that thing felt incredible. I mean, it is pretty amazing how just a little bit of a counterbalance there can make such a big difference. So tomorrow morning, final impressions between the two, final comparison between the two, and then big picture thoughts about what this means for the Apple Vision Pro. All right, so a day later, as promised, and I want to walk you through the thoughts that I had during my solo knit experience. So I'm just going to take you minute by minute. 0 minutes in, I said that it immediately felt heavier than the dual knit, but it was easier to put on, which I think I mentioned last night. 10 minutes in, I said that I'd settled into kind of some normal usage. I mean, remember, I've been using the solo knit strap for a very long time now, almost 2 years. So it felt normal to me. It felt like it almost always feels. But I also said that I could feel the clamping that the circular band was doing to my face. Because remember, it's just one big loop. It's just clamping your face, basically. So I could tell that it was doing that. In particular, across my forehead, which is where one contact point is, and then across my cheekbones. I did mention that it wasn't too bad, but that I could see it beginning to kind of ramp up at that point. Now, 20 minutes in, I said that it was feeling pretty good. I think that this is kind of my sweet spot. I'd forgotten about this, that 20 minutes or so is very doable, basically, for any Apple Vision Pro task. Problem with that is that you often want to be in there for longer periods of time because it's such a cumbersome device to take out and put on. So if you're going to do these things in 20-minute segments, it's usually not worth it. And so the kind of risk-reward ratio just makes it so that most of the time it's not going up because 20 minutes is not a long enough increment. I did say that it continued to feel that pressure in those hot spots along the middle of my forehead and then the top of my cheekbones. 10 minutes later, when I got to 30 minutes, this is when things started to kind of take a turn. I said, the clamp is something that I'm sort of used to, but it is quite constricting, and it was beginning to feel a fatigue on my forehead. This is when I did my first real adjustment. I moved, I think, the strap slightly down. I kind of angled it upwards, so that way it was more evenly pressing on the kind of temple areas and then across the outer edge of my cheekbones. But I could tell that this was the point where things started to turn. So 30 minutes was sort of my limit. By the time I had gotten to 40 minutes, I had written, I was definitely fatigued at that point. My cheekbones, my forehead, even my eyes to some extent were kind of getting strained. I felt the pressure building across my head. And then eventually at that 50-minute mark, I was like, okay, I really wanted adjustments. And I literally wrote down, get me back the dual knit. I had started feeling dry and itchy around the outer edges of my eyeball, not my eyeballs, but along that light seal there. And I'd sort of decided that I was going to finish the night once I got to 60 minutes, because I was going to do the entire hour with the dual knit on. So again, as I've mentioned several times now, the dual knit on this device gets me at least to an hour, because we've done that hour-long test, which is great. I think an hour-long section of work is plenty to do. In fact, I think the battery on this is like no more than a couple of hours, so you're not going to get much better than that anyway, unless you're plugged in. The Solo Knit, while I really enjoyed it as my headband for almost 2 years again, it really has fallen to a second place accessory for the Apple Vision Pro. And so this leads us to a couple of takeaways, which is that number one, fascinating that adding weight to a device that was known for being heavy actually made it more ergonomic, that it was a better trade-off to do that over time. Secondly, that it is, in my opinion, absolutely worth the $99 to get the back and the top strap. If I had tested out before, I know I said at the beginning that I wouldn't have bought it for myself, but now knowing how good it is, I would, because it will make me use my Apple Vision Pro more, just because it is much more comfortable to use for longer periods. And again, that kind of ratio between the pain of putting the thing on versus the amount of time that I'm actually going to be using it for really raises the reward part at that risk-reward calculus. There is one more thing though, which is that, as I've mentioned multiple times, this thing ruins my hair. I mean, the Apple Vision Pro always did, and this does even more. And I think I mentioned at the very beginning, and I didn't realize just how important it would be to my analysis, but it's kind of like wearing a helmet. I know that because I played hockey as a youth, and I, of course, always had to wear a helmet, which stretches from the top of your forehead, over your head, down back to the top of your neck, and in the case of youth hockey, often has a cage over the front of it as well. So I'm very familiar with the kind of feeling of something stretching from your temples all the way up down to the back portion of your neck, which again, this does because it tilts downward. This thing, when you wear it, feels like wearing a helmet, which is just very indicative of the Apple Vision Pro as a whole. The reason that I think that it shipped with this Solo Knit band is because it was trying to pretend that it was something that it wasn't, which is a pair of goggles or glasses. This thing is a heavy iPad, as many people have equipped, strapped to the front of your face, where all the weight is pressing down on that front half. This looked pretty. It is well designed. It worked for what it was, but this is the strap that this device should have shipped with. And the reason it didn't ship with it, in my eyes, is because to some degree, Apple design was in denial of what this device was at the moment that they shipped it. Let me say a little bit more on that. This device is the sort of desktop computer equivalent of what the AR space is and will be. It's heavy, it's stationary, it's not good to walk around with, as I talked about when I talked about reorganizing my space. It doesn't have the longest battery life. It has enough for you to walk around your apartment a little bit, maybe your home, but not enough to do chores in for a long extended period of time, not enough to go outside. You're not going to be wearing this thing with you when you're, traveling and just walking around in a park. Maybe if you're on a transportation, it would, but not in this scenario. And even this, and the way that the battery connects to it, is a bit of an affordance to say you should be using this thing while you're sitting down in a very limited area while you're working. I still think the Apple Vision Pro is a great product overall. I've really enjoyed using it for what it is, and I think it's really fun. And by the way, having this strap makes it better because it makes the product truer to what it actually is. But this thing is a helmet. You are going to wear it as a helmet. It's going to feel like a helmet. It's going to be cumbersome as it is to wear large physical helmets that you might wear in some sports. But I do appreciate Apple design getting to the place where they are acknowledging that fact that this is the better design. even if it's less elegant, even if it's more fiddly, even if it's a little more ugly, because it makes it more pleasurable to use, which is really the ultimate thing when it comes to products like this. So, my final thought on this is that this is kind of a kludgy solution to a problem of Apple's own making, and it points to a lot of changes that I think are going to be coming to the Apple Vision Pro in its next real revision, not the one where they revved it, just the processor and gave you this headband, but one where there's going to be an actual redesign. Because why have a bunch of essentially pointless weight in the back when you could have a clever attachment point where you're maybe charging the thing and having it self-contained? We know there are many other headsets that try and balance out the weight on the front and the back by separating the internals of it across the entire thing that you're going to be wearing regardless anyway. Why have this extra battery pack dangling down the side when you could be storing some of that energy on the back, or potentially having something else like some of the internals along the backside as well? I know there's lots of small other design considerations and engineering decisions really that are involved in a lot of that, but to me this is the closest sign that we have to seeing that some of the key awkward missteps that Apple made with this product in its first generation, and I guess technically in its second generation, are things that will be fixed, hopefully, by the second time that this thing is truly redesigned overall. Bottom line, if you have an Apple Vision Pro, I definitely recommend that you get one of these. I think that they're great at $99. Kind of crazy that it didn't ship with it at the beginning. If you're buying one of the new ones, you don't have to worry about having one of these as well. I mean, it is slightly more flexible in terms of the scenarios in which you can use it, but it's a pain in the ass to use over the long term. So there you go.